It is said that all problems are illusions of the mind. Welcome to the Growth Mindset podcast, where we're learning how to solve problems using our minds. Last week, we spoke about the problems that you want to have and how you can recognize problems as an opportunity to celebrate your successes when they are merely a sign of how well you're doing. There are other forms of problems that you don't want to have, which is the subject of today. And we should remember that we must accept responsibility for a problem before we can solve it. You cannot solve a problem by saying that it's not my problem. Now, I have a general framework for problems that I didn't really think about too much until I started writing these episodes of how to explain them to others. And I realized this is what I've been using my whole life and why I'm maybe sometimes annoyingly happier than most people. So I'll break into it. Back on the train of trying to be more zen, a guideline for being grateful is not complaining, at least not in a way that you hold personal annoyance about something. Like, sure, it's okay to say that the weather isn't great. It is, of course, to just have chatter with people around things that are going on in life and some difficulties, and just relating to other humans on a level is natural. But complaining to the point that it gets you down doesn't help. And in general, complaining is an indicator that there are problems. And for the sake of simplicity, there are 3 buckets into which the types of problems you might complain about will fall, and it's important to work out how you then react to them. The first type of problem is the problem that you want to have. Those are for celebrating. The second type of problem is problems that you can do nothing about. The problems that you can do nothing about, you need to accept them and move on. Lastly, there are the problems you don't want to have. You need to remove them as quickly as possible and then move on. So firstly, the problems you want to have, that was the subject of the last episode. And these are the problems that you'll only have because they are integrally related to a positive situation in your life. The quote, "If you want a pony, you have to shovel." You can consider these problems just a small cost of the good thing that you want. You obviously want to keep the good thing in your life, so you can't remove this smaller problem. And instead of being annoyed at the problem all the time, you should merely celebrate that you also have this problem as recognition of the fact that you have this wider great thing. Life is a win. Number 2, problems you can do nothing about. These are things that, like the laws of nature, and stuff wildly beyond our control. Things that you're born with, and things that you can do nothing about. Aging, recessions, disabilities, the weather, your family, taxes, previous mistakes in life. However much you complain about them, they won't go away. Nothing's going to happen. It's your duty to accept these problems right now, move on as quickly as possible. It's not worth wasting any time with them. Your life on earth is very short. Don't fret about things you can't change. If you think of life as a game, those are just the rules within the game that you are playing. You have to work within those rules, accepting the confinements of these rules, however unfair they are, and playing with the cards that you are dealt will make the experience of your life so much better. Dwelling on something you can't change is going to make your life worse, and it's not going to create a mindset for achieving happiness or success, however you define it, because complaining about something that you can never fix and wanting something you can't have will make you unhappy. Thus, you're making your life worse by wanting something that isn't possible. And since we cannot change reality, let us change the eyes with which we see reality. Now, number 3, the main topic of the podcast today, problems you don't want to have. These are things that are annoying and changeable, so we should change them if it is important. Now, it doesn't sound like the Zen Buddhist concept of just acceptance, with an approach where you make 0 judgments on anything, accept everything as it is with inner peace and beauty. But actually, I think the laws of nature and human existence have some stuff that is highly impractical to fight when it comes to happiness. And humans are social creatures. We have natural passions. Reflecting on our situation, putting ourselves in situations where it's more natural to be happy is a better approach than trying to just enjoy something that we aren't built to enjoy. Because you can't fight nature. For example, I'm mostly heterosexual. Life would be great if I was attracted to men, because then there would be double the amount of people that I could potentially have pleasure with in terms of spending my life and sexual life with, etc. But it's just not something that I can switch on. I mean, I've tried because I thought, why not? That would be fun, but it just doesn't interest me. And I can't change that about myself. Like, it's great that it's legal and allowable because it gives people the possible to find happiness through their means without harming others. But it's not really going to help me trying to force myself to be so open-minded that I can find happiness from something that doesn't interest me. Some people hate pineapple on pizza. I think it's great. You might hate me for it. It doesn't matter. It's fine to just leave people as they are. And you can be surprised by what rules are changeable, for sure. And having a fixed mindset around what you can change is very bad. But before I get onto a massive tangent, I'll come back to the point. Problems that we don't want to have and the appropriate responses. So there's millions of things that we can change in our lives which will lead to more happiness. And what to do about them depends on their cause and their priority. So major problems. There are a few core things that come from our root nature, and they deserve a radical response. Things like community, purpose are existential things that we have to get right in our life. Who do I spend time with? How do they nurture me? What do I spend time doing? What's the point of the things that I spend time doing? If we get those wrong, that can lead to like major midlife crises or early life crisis or late life crises. And either way, depression and living with them can become too much and we have to change things. That's why you should get them right. You should consider changing where you live, who you live with, your friendships, your career, your hobbies. All of those things are pretty major impact decisions that you should make correctly. And it's worth having some major upheaval to remove these problems from your life if they're bringing you down. There's a lot of link up between these things, such as your hobbies will depend on where you are, who your friends are, and who your partner is, etc. Equally, your friends will change based on the hobbies that you enjoy, and all of them kind of work in harmony to build the sort of lifestyle that you have. So that's why it's a major impact when you change these things. And when there are problems within them, those are the biggest problems that you can solve in your life. Then we move on to things like millennial problems. Having too many interests and desires all at once is an issue. Wanting to be good at a million things, having a social life, having a good career, using social media, reading newsletters, reading books, watching YouTube, being up to speed on news, being up to speed on the economy, being up to speed on politics, doing yoga, going running, having a painting hobby, so on and so forth, starting your podcast, like wanting to do all of these things at once is a problem. Having interests and curiosities is fine. Embracing all of them all the time, every week, means you will inevitably let yourself down, you'll let others down, you'll commit to too many things, and it becomes hard to prioritize and work out what the hell you're even doing. It'll take up too much of your attention, and things like social media and other stuff will just take more of us than the other things that we actually want to prioritize and put time into. You can blame the internet or how you're brought up or whatever. The point is, if you're complaining about your lack of time or annoyances of things you want to do, that can be solved with prioritizing what you want to do and being a little bit more minimalist with your life and accepting that you can't do everything. Deciding on the few things that are really worth doing and putting your focus into cutting out, limiting other things will give yourself more of the things that are truly important. And that is a really big act of self-love. When people ask you what you're doing with your life and you say things like, oh, I'm just so busy, that's one of the things that is my life goal to never say. Because complaining about not doing yoga again this week should make you realize that the problem is that you want to fit too many things into your life. Because if you wanted to do something, you should be doing it. If you're not doing yoga because you chose to focus on your writing, that's fine. You can't do everything. The cost of doing your writing habit means that you don't do your yoga habit, and it's a price you're willing to pay, so you shouldn't be complaining about not doing yoga. The important thing is to shut up and be happy doing the few things you like doing and not trying to do everything. If it turns out you wanted to do yoga, but actually you just missed it because you're spending too much time on social media, then maybe it's time to cut out so much social media from your life, or accept that you do like spending some time on social media after all, and your priorities for yoga aren't what you thought they were, because ultimately your priorities are the things that you actually do, even if you think they're your priorities or not. And you could accept that. It's fine. The issue of too many desires has come to define millennials, which is why I called it millennials problems. But to be honest, it seems to define all humans at any age, in any era of humanity. It just happens to be labeled on millennials a lot lately, so I'm possibly just adding to the narrative, which is false. But we do all seem to be overwhelmed with too much choice and the mindset that we can have all things, even though we can't. And that's a very grand topic for another time, with which the growth mindset is sometimes a flaw where people think they can achieve anything, which means they can also achieve everything. And that's not true. You can only achieve some things, not all things. Now, smaller problems on the surface aren't major life-changing problems. They aren't things like the millennial problems either that overwhelm us. And small problems are worth scrutinizing to see if they are classified correctly, like, e.g., my boss has bad breath. Well, if you hate your job, then maybe you should change your career because it's actually part of the big problems that you need to change. And there's no point focusing on your boss's breath because there's a bigger problem you need to fix anyway, and that will then fix the smaller problem. The other option being you love your job. Okay, well, perhaps you could talk to your boss about his breath or something. And if you're not prepared to do that, then accept it as a cost of achieving the good job that you want. And one of the laws of life of things that you aren't going to change, because if you're not going to change it, you just need to accept it and move on already. When you're looking at things that you complain about, you really need to just scrutinize the real complaint behind it and how important it is. If you struggle to find a way to accept this complaint, it possibly fits into something bigger that you do need to take action for. Of course, things aren't always completely clear, and there can be sort of changes to what we enjoy over time. There are certainly blurry lines between problems that you do or don't want to have as your life changes and things naturally ebb and flow, as is the nature of existence. Experiences that used to be a total win for you and are worth a sacrifice may no longer be the same. For example, as you get older, travel does change. Younger people tend to enjoy traveling a lot and are happy sleeping in hostels, happy packing all their worldly belongings into a backpack every few days to run off and see another city or a mountain at whatever. Of course, after a while, all these new things become less interesting. The sacrifices that you make start to feel like a higher and higher cost compared to the reward. Things like back pain, food poisoning, 30-hour bus rides become something that actually we can only complain about, and we don't have gratitude for the ability to see yet another new thing because we've seen plenty of new things and it's not actually that important to us anymore. And because of these changes in our life, the things that we become grateful for and the things that become problems change as well. And change is all part of the beautiful experience of being a human, and there's no need to complain about it. We can just remain open-minded to questioning our feelings and going with the flow. So, in conclusion, complaints are brilliant as a tool to reflect and learn about ourselves and improve our lives. You shouldn't just never complain. That would be really bad for you. But you shouldn't complain more than once without looking into that complaint and being mindful of why you're complaining and seeing if this is a problem that actually you want to have, if this is a problem that you just need to learn to accept, or if this is a problem that you should change. Now, trying to find a more inner Zen peace, a state that allows us the privilege of breezing through situations without whining, with more gratitude, will help us enjoy our lives more. And then, when we occasionally do make a complaint, we can look at it as something to help us check in on why we're complaining and where in these categories it falls into. Like, is it a sign of a good thing in your life? Then you can reframe it as a positive. Is it something that I really can't change at all? Then you can reframe it as something that you need to accept and you just can't let bother you. Or are you complaining just as a way to just relate to other people and get along and have some fun? Then you don't need to be depressed at all. Just don't over complain all the time, or you might be seen as negative. Is it a problem that you're complaining about that actually you can change? Then it's important and you fix it. And those are the main rules of complaining. Now, of course, these things can change over time. When you first had the complaint, it might fall into like a problem that you wanted to have. But if you do keep on complaining about it, it might be a sign that this thing isn't such a priority in your life anymore. Maybe you don't need a pony in your life anymore because you don't ride it, you don't have the time, you have other interests of what you want to achieve, and you don't want to shovel all the that comes with having a pony. And maybe it's time to sell the pony and accept that you don't ride ponies anymore. When you first got it, it was a problem you wanted to have. You wanted to shovel the pony, so you got to ride your pony every day. But now you don't want your pony, so you need to sell it, etc. Your tastes change, and sometimes we take on too many things. That's life. So I will leave you with this. Our dilemma is that we hate change and love it at the same time. What we really want is for things to remain the same but get better. This is, of course, the endemic with our society, that we just complain about things without being willing to change them. What we need to do is either change our surroundings or change ourselves. And you're just going to have to reflect on that and accept it. So thank you very much for listening. Do remember that life is for enjoying after all. And if you want to enjoy your life, that starts with enjoying today. So be kind to yourself. And whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else.